Hey friends, so what I wanted to do in this video is I wanted to give you guys a rundown of this board. This is the main board that I use to make my new album, which just came out yesterday. It's called Uncle to Nieces. It's under my musical name of IFF. So feel free to go and listen to that, and I just wanted to give you some context for what I use to make that, and also just explain this board since I'm using it in a lot of videos lately, and I figure it might be a bit confusing if you're not big on electronics and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to give you a rundown. So we're going to start by going through the signal chain and the MIDI chain, just so you can see where the sounds are coming from, what's controlling what, and all of that. So everything starts down here at the Electron model samples. I consider it the brain of my setup, despite the fact that it's not sending any command changes, control changes, whatever you call them, or program changes. All it is it's sending master tempo and start-stop data to everything else. To me, that's the brain, but I don't dive into the program changes and stuff because I don't understand that yet, and it scares me a little bit. So it's a 6-track sampler. I'm not going to go deep into the specs on anything just because you can look it up. 6-track sampler. Really, really cool. I do most of my drum sound on it, and then it does do a lot of melodic stuff for me as well. And there is one song where I actually play a line live on it, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Really, really cool. So this is on channel 2 of the mixer, and it starts the MIDI chain, which then goes over and into the circuit monostation. Circuit monostation is a monosynth. It's technically paraphonic, so you can play... you can have a sequence going on oscillator 1 and then play oscillator 2 if you're in paraphonic mode. I'm not in that for this song, but we'll get to that later. It also has the mod sequencer, which I use to send CV signal out and into ZOIA, so I can control sequencers, so I can control tap tempo, that kind of stuff. All sorts of fun. Really, really great sounding synth. Can be great for bass, great for leads. I use it for drums on one song as well, in addition to the model samples, so that's kind of a cool thing. So then MIDI goes through and over to the RC-202. So that also gets start-stop data. That also keeps it in tempo when I'm doing live looping, which I do a lot of. That one comes in on channel 4, so I have volume control over it. And then that's where we get into my aux sends and my FX loops. This is where things get kind of crazy, and this is where I love the VLZ3, the 1202 VLZ3. So the top row is aux 1. Aux 1 goes over to ZOIA. ZOIA I mostly use for this music as an effects box, but there is one song in particular where I use it as a synthesizer, and then generally when I'm experimenting, I use it as a synthesizer a lot, and with sequencers and stuff. Really, really crazy. That one comes in on channel 5, so I do have control over it specifically, and with the aux mixes, I have control over wet dry for the whole thing. RC-202 is the second send, so that's the second row down here. So I can send anything to be looped. I can also create feedback loops, which I don't necessarily do intentionally, but sometimes happy accidents happen. So that's really cool. RC-202 I actually also use a lot for live effects. Because you can you can program these buttons to be effects other than just what they say. So you have a lot of flexibility there, and a lot of live fun can go on. Only other thing I'll point out is over here, I've got the Walrus Audio Fathom. Right now, it is not plugged into the board. I usually use that for vocal effects. So when I recorded this album and when I play live, I use this telephone microphone that I got off of Reverb. Pretty cool. That goes directly into Fathom. That goes directly into channel 1. I use this a lot for the sustain function, so you can have infinite reverb trails. Really, really wonderful sound, really ambient, that kind of thing. Extremely effective in this setup, and that's all of the vocal reverb on this entire album is from the Fathom. So I really, really love the Fathom. But for the purposes of this video, I just have a mic plugged directly into channel 1. So that's sort of how everything works. So like I said, start and stop and master tempo from the model samples. MIDI chain goes here to here, through to here, and then this is CV controlled via the mod sequence over here. So that's everything. So let me show you just how some of these songs work. So let me get set up for that. So the first one I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you Elegy. So the way I have everything formatted on here is that my 6 songs that I'm playing in my live set are on my top row on the mono station. They're on their own set of patterns here on the model samples, and they're in their own bank here over on the RC-202, and it's the first 6 effects lined up. So everything is lined up. I don't send program changes for model samples, as I said. I just switch between songs through everything, just because I don't know how to do program changes yet. So who knows? Maybe someday I will, maybe I won't. Doesn't really matter. So what I really wanted to show about this one was I wanted to show how I use model samples to sort of play the end of the song. And then I also wanted to show how I'm using ZOIA with that mod sequence over here on the mono station. So let me just play kind of a lot of sounds at you. So let's show just ZOIA. So it's like fuzzy, tempo sync delay. Bring back in the drums. And then I have the dry signal also coming through just to sort of fill it out, but I can bring that down. 202 is handling a loop, and I do a lot of the beat. So that's sort of a lot of what's going on. Now, at the end of the song, I have this playing. So this is 2 different pads. So there's a kalimba sound. What did I do? And then there's a glockenspiel. And they have the internal delay set, but one of the things I like to do is I send it through the delay on the RC-202, which again is tempo synced. So let's hear what that sounds like. So this is now just the model samples and the loop from the RC-202 playing. If I wanted to, I could send this over into that crazy delay. It's a little crazy. And I can still, again, I can send any audio from this into this and vice versa. Just if I really want it to drown out. And so that's where I can use those feedback loops sort of to my advantage. And yeah, that sort of shows how everything is synced up. The mod sequence is controlling the tempo of this. The MIDI is controlling the tempo of the delay here. And yeah, it's all interconnected and intertwined really nicely. So for I Still Find Wonder, what I want to show off is I want to show off how I use the RC-202 sort of as a sampler. And then I also wanted to show how I use ZOIA to bring in new voices when it is like a pitch tracking synth effect. It's weird to explain, but I'll show you. So I'm going to hit play, and you're going to hear RC-202 and model samples now, nothing from monostation. So what I have here is a guitar sample, a guitar loop that I recorded that I'm playing again as a sample in RC-202, and then the drums are handled over here. And then let me bring everything down. So for the majority of this song, almost everything is being played over here, and then I have some stuff that comes in on mono station. So mainly what I want to point out is so mono station still isn't doing anything, but I get to a part of the song where I start looping. A little bit of a boring loop, right? And since it's MIDI synced, it's looping perfectly. But what I do is I hit this foot switch, So what that did was, on this foot switch, I have it tied to, you'll see it turns on over here, a pitch tracked extra synthesizer part that I believe is a fifth above whatever it's hearing. So all that's coming through when it is off, but then when I turn it on, it's kind of jumping around a little bit. So it's not perfect. It's not a perfect tracking thing, but for this sort of like ambient loopscape that I'm trying to build during this section of the song, I love how it sounds, and I just leave it playing. And here's how it sounds. Bringing everything else. Kind of makes sense, right? So what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm trying to build ambience as much as possible. I'm trying to build a lot of sounds, and I'm letting the machines sort of drive that. So that's sort of the most interesting parts about this song. So for HUARACHE Summer, this is probably my favorite song to play live because it's just so... there's so much manipulation that I do and so much fun stuff that just makes this song sound so fun and so summery. So I'm going to hit play and you're going to get pretty much everything. So bass line coming from mono station. I don't have the melodies turned on that are coming from model samples, which are really just counter melodies. Guitar loop here, and that's really where a lot of the work is being done, is over on the 202 for this song. So let's hear it. Kind of a vibe, right? So this song, I am constantly manipulating the beat repeat function. So one of the things that I like doing live, I didn't do this on the album, but live, I use the other effects. So I have a granular delay playing here. So let's just... And so you're sort of manipulating the size of the grains. There's a slicer, which can really cut it up. There's a filter. But the power comes in all of them together. So let's try, and just playing different variations of them. Let's bring in the other two tracks. So like I said, just a couple other melodies playing here. Then we have the glitch delay over here. So what I'm going to do is I send mono station into ZOIA. And like I said, I do that almost all the time. And what you have is there's a glitch delay. So you'll see this is freaking out over here. And let's hear what it sounds like once I turn it on. So. Let me mute everything else just so you can really hear it once it hits the beat. So the left foot switch here controls some sort of like tempo control and changing between different delays. And a lot of the time I'm just mashing it while I play. I will send the drums to it as well. So that's not one that I built. I got it off of Patch Storage, which is one of the best parts of ZOIA is that there's this great community making patches. But it's really fun, and it just kind of absolutely goes nuts. And it's fun. So that's HUARACHE Summer. So for Weekend City, this song is based in live looping a lot, in that I'm looping a lot of what's going on the mono station in the 202 instead of just relying on the mono station playing its own loops. So I'm going to do my best to get it right for you. It's a little bit challenging. It's my hardest song to play live, but hopefully it works out. So let's start. All starts with model samples, and then I'm going to start looping the mono station, and you'll see. It would help if I turned everything on. Okay. So what I did was I recorded the first part, so that's that whole part, right? And then I live played in, let me get to an empty pattern, this part. So using the mod matrix, I actually have reverse velocity on the pads here, so when you play hard, the filter's closed. When you play lightly, the filter opens, just so I have a lot of control, but sort of like the opposite way that you would normally do it. It just helps me because usually when I get to that first loop, I hit really hard, so it made more sense for me because then by the time I get to the second loop, I can be a bit quieter about it. So the other thing that Monostation does on this song that's really, really neat is I use it as a drum machine. So I'm going to show you just what that sounds like by itself, and this is using the patch flip, so every single one sounds different. So it sounds like this. Pretty good. It's like an analog drum machine. Monostation is secretly like the coolest drum machine, I think, just because it's so good sounding. So what I do for that when I play live is I send it to the RC-202 and I use effects. I didn't do this on the album, but I use the ring mod I have set to be a roll, a beat repeat. So let me show you what that sounds like. So it's tempo synced. And after a certain threshold, it holds it forever and you can glitch it out. And then I also use the ring mod. So let me play this and I'll just show you what that sounds like. It's wild. So that's how that works. And you can program these effects to be different things. That's how I have the ring mod on this one and not on this one. So let's do a quick loop of that and I can show you sort of how I use that to my advantage in this song. That roll effect recorded in. Now let's do a ring mod. because the drums are still playing over here. So the drums, I keep the drums playing for a little while until I go to the next part of the song, because what I can do now is I can use the beat repeat on the track effects that are only affecting these loops to get really, really weird fills. So let me show you how that works. And I love the ring mod because it picks up those weird pitches that the ring mod gets from the drums. Yeah, and then otherwise over here, this is running a granular reverb, which does sound really nice. I'll show you what that would sound like with this part. And a lot of the time, I'll also send this over there, the model samples. You get a bit feedbacky. So just kind of really wild and out there. Like I said, it gets a little feedbacky just because it's a really big reverb sound. And then this is a hold function. So if I stop everything, sort of that undercurrent playing. That's also the model samples dying out. And there it goes. And that's sort of all the secrets for Weekend City. So I hope that this was informative for you guys. I realize that this is kind of a convoluted, kind of crazy setup, but it really is working for me right now. I feel very, very creative with this setup. I feel like I can achieve sounds that I've never been able to achieve before, and that's sort of what this album is to me. This is sort of an album of sounds that I've always wanted to make that I didn't know I could. You know, I had to learn how to use all these things in order to make this album. So they influence the album, and they're sort of the reason why the album sounds the way it does. I really give it up for the gear that gets you where you need to go. On other songs, I did use some other things. Like I said, I used a good amount of guitar pedals. Not as many as I usually do, for sure, but there was a lot of multi-stomp, of course. There was a lot of Quantum Vision from Witchfinder. Particularly the last song, Terrible Day for a Thunderstorm. That one's totally not based in any of this stuff. That came to me once I got this wonderful, wonderful omnichord, which I then sent through my pedal board, pitched down using the pitchfork. I used some lo-fi reverb from the multi-stomp. I used some shimmer reverb from Quantum Vision. I used some overdrive from Birmingham Sounds 2017. Tons of fun. And then I multi-tracked the bass lines there with my other beloved Casio Tone MT100. So that one sort of breaks the mold of how this album functioned, that song in particular. But overall, it's really cool. Oh, and the solo part, I shred through my Rockstar solo in that song. The solo is actually just the 2017 by Birmingham Sounds and the Lo-Fi Junkie patch on my multi-stomp, just because it sounded so good and I didn't need anything else. So I shredded through my solo with that. But yeah, that's how that worked. I hope you guys like the album. I hope this was informative, like I said. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm always happy to make more videos to show you how I use any particular thing. Just feel free to ask. You can always also jump over to my Instagram, of course. I always post rundowns of every single post I make. I always try to explain this is what this is doing, this is what this is doing. I don't believe in hiding settings. I don't believe in not telling people how you're doing something, because then how are we going to learn? And I've learned so much from so many of you across the internet all over the place that I feel like it's my responsibility to show you how this all works. So I hope this was informative in some way. I hope that you enjoy my album. It's on Spotify, it's on Bandcamp, it's on all of the things. It's pay what you want. I do not expect to make money from it. I just hope you like it. I hope it makes you dance. I hope it makes you happy. And yeah, thanks for being here. So I will see you guys another time, and have a great rest of your day.